she wondered what she could do to try to keep him from having to go there. We also received phone calls from soldiers who asked for help, some who told us that their recruiters assured them that they would not go to Iraq or Afghanistan. And we decided that rather than just sit back, we should form an organization that should try to help to spread nonviolence in the schools, but also protect the right of privacy of our high school students from the Pentagon. What am I talking about? As many of you know, under No Child Left Behind, if a military recruiter goes to a high school administrator or principal and says, I would like the name, address, phone number, and all the information you have for Jane Doe, by law, the administrator in that school has to give that Pentagon recruiter the information.
Students of ours, our sons and daughters, receiving this information. And my youngest son is celebrating his 17th birthday tonight. I don't know how many of these he's got from the National Guard and other armed forces, but there's a lot of them. And it paints a very rosy picture in here. It says you can pay off your credit cards if you enlist. It says you can do all kinds of good things here. And it says here, as a team, we can bring power, speed, and victory to America. But I think we can also bring power, speed, and victory to America through peace. So.
This was my son 3 years ago. Full of life, playing, being the goofy self that he was. 2 years in July, I'll be visiting his grave. He took his life 4 months after he returned home from Iraq. He was one of the first waves of coming home. Nothing was ever mentioned by the military at all about PTSD, any kind of mental trauma. In fact, they still deny it today, that your child has suffered any kind of mental trauma. And if they do express any kind of feelings that they have had mental trauma, they have to prove it. They have to have witnesses that they were there, and every soldier sees a traumatic event differently.
However, there's also something in No Child Left Behind which says that parents and students should be notified of their right to sign an opt-out form, which says that if a Pentagon recruiter comes to the principal and asks for the private information of these students, it will not be given to them.
And it says World Peace, and it was inspired from World Peace. This was actually Wings of Peace. But on the back, it says staff, and we all need to be staff for world peace. So that's what that's about. 4 years ago, he claimed mission accomplished. On that day, my son was serving somewhere in Iraq. We did not know where he was or how he was, only that he was in the middle of a nightmare. And there was no good reason for him to be there, and the nightmare continues. On a March evening 4 years ago, my husband, Ron, and I were at home, paralyzed with dread, because our son Jesse was stationed on the Iraq-Kuwait border. I'll never forget that night. We were sitting at home, watching television, thinking, maybe it's not going to happen. Then the program was interrupted, and we knew Bush's shock and awe. Now it's our shock and awe.
So our talents, I guess, what we've been talking about, our talents is I've become a professional complainer. I have went out there and complained enough about what happened to my son that I do not want this to happen to any other family, to any other young soldier, that they feel that they have nowhere to turn for the help that they need to end the war that they've brought home in their minds.
When we're coming home to a country that seems to be more concerned with where a celebrity will be buried than with the possibility of even more soldiers being sent to Iraq. We must bring them home, and once they are home, we must care for them. We must prove to them that the sacrifice they made is appreciated and that we honor them for their service.
That we know of Iraq veterans who have taken their lives since coming home. And like Carla said, their names are never mentioned anywhere. The military doesn't even keep track of these names. With this new legislation that we had passed, as crazy as this sounds, the VA now cannot turn away a suicidal veteran if they show up at the hospital asking for help. Before they could turn them away. We have no room for you. What happened? They told me, oh, we're so sorry for your loss, ma'am. Just know that you're not the only one, but I have to transfer you to another department. I got transferred to another department. Same thing again, you're not the only one. After hearing this 4 times, I finally asked, how many are there? Oh, there's no way of knowing. Nobody keeps track. Well, doesn't that just give them the easy way of not having to do anything about it? Well, I'm up here to tell you, you're going to do something about it. And that's...
Therefore, please proceed